we are going on next. It's enable and how to be an MSP secure way. So our colleague Andres Shabata, sales manager for enable solutions at Zebra Systems. Um, Andre, are you with us?
Yes, it sounds to starts to sound quite spiritual if you ask that way.
Yeah. Oh, go, great, great spirit. So, okay. Nice to have you, and thank you that you join us from event you are participating just now, and that you took time. Uh, Great. Um, I will stop sharing, and now stage is yours.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. I will just share instead of Nebojsa. I hope you can see my screen right now. So, just in short, if you need anything technical about Enable from our site, you see the QR for calendar reservation here and contact for me. It will be at the end, so you will have time to scan it if you have any questions in the future. And we can jump right into our presentation. The topic I chose was the secure way to do MSP with Enable. So first thing I would like to do is just run a quick overview of Enable portfolio, everything that Zebra can help you get. And I would say it's, of course, Enable is only MSP focused. And it's a good way to start your toolbox if you want to start doing MSP or want to improve your efficiency. So of course, at the core of every MSP or almost every MSP is a good remote management and monitoring system, because if you don't know what's happening and if you can't manage it remotely and efficiently and automate as much as possible, then you are going to spend a lot of time checking things manually and resolving things and going from one customer to another and really just waste a lot of time. So not only for security, but also for efficiency, it's important to manage things centrally. There's two main options from Enable on how to do that. There's Nsight, which I personally prefer. It's cloud-based, so you don't need to set anything up. But there's, of course, regional data centers in Europe, so your data is not flying over the ocean and you are not waiting for some data transfers. Ping is still a thing. But it's easy to set up. You just deploy agents. You can either do that through an MSI installer for Windows, where you deploy it through GPO at your customers. You can get a remote worker installer, which is basically silent installer, which runs on the background, sets everything up according to your policies, and you just send it to the user and let them install it. And of course, you can deploy on Mac and Linux as well. In case of Mac, there's now basically full native support. So if you buy new Apple devices, you integrate with Apple Business Manager. The moment the new computer is started up, it will just show to the user that this device is managed by your organization and they can't do much about it. So it's the easiest possible setup for you, and you will have, of course, access to configuration profiles which are native to Mac. You will have access to take control, so you can do remote desktop support, and you will have access to automatization, so you can run scripts remotely, either scheduled, manual, or you can start them in response to monitoring events. There's a nice bundle going on with Nsight, which also includes MSP Manager. That's a system to help with your tickets. So a help desk, of course, with some workflow automation as well, and very strong integration with Nsight in particular, where anytime monitoring detects any issue, MSP Manager automatically creates a ticket. If it's resolved automatically by your scripts and so on, then the ticket will be closed, but you will still have the entry, and at the end of each month, you can send a very nice report on how many things were mitigated thanks to you. And another part of the package is standalone take control. For every monitored device, both in nSight and nCentral, you have take control included, so you can do remote connections, access just the command line terminal PowerShell remotely, so you don't disturb the user, or you can have file transfers and all the usual stuff you might need. It also pops up system info about the machine you are connecting to, and gives you integration with Passportal as well, so you have the login info at your hand and also the documentation. And standalone take control is the same thing, but only for the devices that you do not monitor yet. So if somebody either needs one-time support or you need to connect to a device which will not be monitored, then standalone take control is the way to do it. The main difference between nSight and nCentral is that nCentral can be installed on-premise. It's the preferred way to do it, actually. And you can also run it either in your own cloud. So let's say you use Azure or Amazon Web Services, you can just deploy the server there, or you can have it hosted by N-able. There's quite a few options. And the main thing with nCentral is you can have really detailed filters for devices. You can set up policies in the interface into very deep detail. And of course, you can automate even more. But it's on the level where it's ideal if you have at least one person who will just take care of nCentral, set up the automations and so on. So if you are just starting, nSight is the way to go. Another solution from N-able is Cove Data Protection. As data protection suggests, it's a backup solution. So it's only cloud-based, meaning you can still choose which data center will be used for which customer, but you don't save locally. You might ask, why not? I have slow internet connection with half of my customers and the other half don't want to pay for some offsite storage. But that's exactly the point. If they don't want to pay for offsite storage, the cloud backup usually comes cheaper than some dedicated storage somewhere else, even having your own data center as an MSP. And since it's offsite and in a reliable data center with replication and so on, there's no worry that, let's say, a power surge or a flood or anything similar will just wipe out all the data that's stored as a backup, but in the same building as the production systems. Also, Cove Data Protection offers some spectrum of possible data sources. You can backup Microsoft 365. You can backup just documents from the local machines. So if you have a standardized image of the OS and the applications, and the users are just creating Word and Excel documents and things like that, you can backup just that. It will be very cheap, and the restoring will be quick as well. You can also use disaster recovery either to local virtual machine or to Azure. And fairly new thing is there's a standby image. So one more thing about Cove Data Protection that you might want to know is that it's file-based. It doesn't take an image of the whole system, but it backs up individual files. It's an advantage for two things. As I already kind of mentioned, if you have slow internet at your customers, you can still push the backup, the first big backup, without any issues. I back up 3 devices or 3 computers just over a phone line internet. And second thing is you can backup almost continuously. So let's say you launch a backup every 15 minutes. 2 files have changed, you will have 2 megabyte upload, and that's it. And when you do this, you can just continuously restore to Azure or to local VM. And if your primary production system fails, you will lose at most 15 minutes of work. Not to take too much time with backup, I've already mentioned Passportal a bit. It's a system to manage passwords and documentation. Of course, built for MSPs primarily, so you have individual customers. You can create private encryption keys for each one of them. Everything is behind 2FA. And the great thing for MSPs there is that you have a really nice overview of the documentation. You have predefined types of documentation. So let's say you want to document a customer's DNS records, SSL certificates, and so on, because you take care of those for them, of course. So you just enter the domain name and let Passportal pull all the available data. If something is not available in DNS, then you can fill it in manually. Same thing with the SSL, and it will notify you when either your DNS or SSL certificate is ending. And you can put in documentation for asset tracking and so on, how each customer is connected to the internet, let's say, what are the settings of individual VLANs, and you can tie all the documentation together. So if you put in their main router as an asset, you can just link it when you are setting up documentation of how they are connected to the internet. And of course, it's integrated with everything that might be necessary. I think I've mentioned almost everything we might need to know about take control, so we can just skip it. One more thing, with the standalone take control, you can have a support request queue. So if you are logged into the console, you can have it either as a web console or as an application on your computer. And when a customer opens your web page, looks for a contact, says, I have an issue, they can just click a link and you will get a support request. They will download a one-time connection agent, and you can just straight up connect to them with chat and resolve everything on the remote desktop. Now to the interesting part and my main focus today, or one of two, it's DNS Filter. It's a fairly new addition to N-able's portfolio, and basically it's next-gen web filtering. The main advantage is that it doesn't rely on, like let's say, web filter on your firewall, on updates of some local database, or on some vendor to do categorization and push the updates to the server where you will check it. There's a real-time updated DNS, which is requested, or to which you send your requests. So everything is updated automatically usually. They have a fairly sophisticated heuristic engine. So every time a new website pops up, it will be checked. And if some of your users try to access a web page that's not in the database, no issue. DNS filter will check it, see if there's any risks. And if there are, they won't allow it. They will redirect them on how you set it up. I will show you the demo in a minute. Just to go over the basic principle. So you are probably all familiar with normal web filtering, which just unpacks the HTTP packets and filters based on that. So DNS filter is made to stop everything one step earlier. So the computer doesn't even start making connection to the infected website. You can see the easy diagram here, and let's go on. So main arguments why to switch from traditional web filter is, of course, it blocks unwanted or malicious webs a step before a web filter can. It's independent on port and protocol settings because it's checking on the domain name. So if your web filter is just checking HTTP, HTTPS, then you can miss data transfers on other ports and other protocols. It's independent on group policy, physical location. Like I said, if you have a web filter on a firewall, it might not always work if you are not behind that firewall, if somebody's working from home, for example. And of course, DNS filter is independent of the network structure. No need to send extra requests. It's just normal traffic, everything the device would do normally. Send a request to resolve the name. And one of the good things is that you also get a secure DNS, so you don't get users that are accessing something that your local ISP set up and didn't do it properly. There's a very nice anti-phishing. So if there's a website that's trying to impersonate anything else, there will be things like logos on the web page cross-referenced, and it will be flagged as phishing based on that. And of course, you get reporting. As for deployment, there's three main things. You either have a site, so you forward requests from your Active Directory DNS or from your firewall or wherever. So that's still with some disadvantages. Namely, you don't have very exact reporting because it's all behind the net. So another possibility is you have a relay installed in your network. So all the DNS requests from your local network will go through that relay, and the relay will be aware of which device was which request, leading to nicer and more accurate reports. And last option is the roaming agent. It's native for Windows, Mac, and they do Chrome OS as well. And there's also an agent for iOS, iPad OS, and Android. But since Apple is Apple, you have to have the devices in supervised mode. It can be deployed very easily from nSight or nCentral if you use it to manage your devices, whether that's the desktop laptops or mobile devices. And before we switch to EDR, we can go to the overview and short demo of DNS filtering. So I will just reshare my screen to show you the correct window. And here you can see the dashboard after you log in. You can either have a separate login because DNS filter is fairly standalone, or you can use integrations for SSO. So it supports OpenID, Okta, Microsoft Azure, Google Workspace as SSO providers. And when you are at the MSP level, you will see geographical activity, total requests allowed, blocked, and threats. Difference between blocked and threats is, of course, blocked would be the ones that are not malicious, but you have set up a policy to block them. Here you can set up filtering policies. So default ones, you can set up categories. You can enforce safe search, block threats, and even use AppAware, which basically detects individual apps and modules based on the known DNS requests that the modules do. So, for example, Messenger can be blocked because it uses slightly different domains than the web page of Facebook itself. Here, for example, I've just blocked everything that's Chinese, but you can set it up however you like. You can also set up a whitelist, import from CSV, or set it up manually. Block list, the same, and you can have some extra settings to block trackers, advertising, and things like that. Just below, you can set up your universal lists. So this will be used for all the policies. And again, it's blacklist, whitelist. And you can set up your own custom block web page. So either you will just have it hosted by DNS filter, and that there you can just put in your name. That's for your convenience. You can set up the organization name, so it will show up that the web page was blocked by this and this organization based on the policy. And you can set up the email where you will get notifications if you want. Upload the logo and preview. You can also set up bypass passwords, so some users can have high privileges. And just to show you how it looks, here's a preview of a website I have set up before. It's available in quite a few languages. So in my case, it's in Czech. It shows the IP and block time, the logo you have set up, and the organization name. Here's the reporting again on MSP level still. And you can have quite a lot of that set up, in which time frame it will be reported and so on. I don't think we need to go through all these reports, but let's just skip to the settings of US and MSP. You have your organization name, address if you want it there, and external ID that's used for example, the relay. So it will be authenticated on the DNS filter. You can add users and restrict access. So if you are doing co-managed services, the IT guy from the customer can have partial access and just see his own organization without you paying anything extra, and they can be happy that they can have a look at what's happening in their network. You can set up a complete white label, so you can have the dashboard renamed, custom domain mapping, logo, favorite icon, and you have an overview of your subscriptions, and then settings. You can enforce 2FA, configure single sign-on as I've shown at the start, limit personal information collection, so it's GDPR compliant if you need it to be. Of course, I only have it on some demo environment, so there's no need for me to do that. And you can check the roaming clients here. From the tools, you just have the SSL certificate and domain report here. SSL certificate is used if you have some custom blog pages and you want them to show up as trusted. And domain report is used to check if some domain is categorized properly. Just for the integration, you can also use CM integrations, integrate with AD, and further communication. So you, for example, have notifications when some users enter a website or try to enter a website that's recognized as a threat. Once you go into the customer level, right on the top, you will have, again, an overview, the policies, and then deployments. So you can set up the sites here. It consists just of the public IP, and you can set up the policy and blog page. Right next to it, you have the roaming clients, which are used for anything that's going to be moving in and out of the local network. So here you will have an overview of those, installation. So as I said, Mac OS, Windows, Chrome OS, and also the mobile ones. And you can enable auto registration here. So if somebody gets your key, they can't register that device outside of the frame that it's enabled. You can set up a pin for bypass and do some automatic updates and local domains, which will be used to forward local DNS requests to the local AD DNS. Again, you have the users here for the customer, sync tools, relays, as I've mentioned in the presentation, and reporting, again, just for one organization. And you can set up some details for them as well. So you can have different white labeling for each one of your customers. In case you give them access to the dashboard, each one of them can have their own nice logo here. So if you have any questions, feel free to write in the chat. And if not, then I will go back to the presentation. And we will go to my second main point today, which is enable EDR. So it is enable EDR, but the engine, it's powered by SentinelOne, so a fairly well-known EDR vendor at this point. And there's a few levels at which you can get it. There's the basic EDR with EDR control. You have the EDR agent, threat resolution, integrated rollback, storyline of the attack, and basically everything you need for the basic security. There's also the option to run EDR complete, which includes XDR, so extended log collections. Basically, you will have overview of all the events on the machines, and it's especially helpful if you are integrating with a CM. I will show you shortly what the data looks like. And basically, you get detailed telemetry of everything that's happening. You get the option for threat hunting, so which is proactive search for threats, even if something doesn't behave like a threat, so even the AI doesn't recognize it, it's not yet known, or it's some custom built piece of software, or even, as Nebojša mentioned before, generated by ChatGPT, so it's an entirely new code, and someone's using it specifically to strike one of your organizations. Unless it starts to behave suspicious enough, so the EDR or anything will block it on its own, you can look for unusual activity through threat hunting. And as I mentioned, you can use the extended data collection to integrate with a CM, so you will have all the details and you can correlate some markers on different workstations and servers. So even if the attack is in the earlier stage and not yet showing up as malicious, you can still find out there's something not entirely correct happening. And of course, the third option is to get it with the Vigilant Response package. So if you don't want to do all that proactive threat hunting and going through tons of logs, either you don't have the manpower or it's something you just don't want to get into, you can have this managed by SentinelOne directly. They have a security operations center and a team that's going to help you with all the management. They will be analyzing all the threats and resolving them as far as possible. So they can use all the tools within EDR, and if they find an attack vector that they think needs to be fixed, they will let you know and let you know exactly what and why you should change in your network or in your group policy settings and so on. Of course, from all of that, you get fairly detailed documentation and reports, so you know they are doing something. And here you have a quick overview that I've borrowed from Enable directly, which shows up why consider managed EDR. Because with the storyline where you have all the potential threats, there's monthly around 100 and almost 150 billion events with files, 110 billion network events, and so on. And 1.1 million of all of that is suspicious potentially. So what's detected is usually about 21,000 potential threats, and 15,000 of these will be blocked, and the rest needs to be analyzed manually because it can be false positive. And that's where the team does most of the work. And only 32 of those events will usually need some further actions, but only after being analyzed, of course. And this is on some example network of, if I remember correctly, about 10,000 devices. So next part, we will go back to the demo, and this time it will be for EDR. So I will again switch the sharing, and I usually start here, which is the dashboard. You have unresolved threads here. You have overview if you have any infected endpoints, feed of the news from Sentinel-1 because they are quite useful. And also on the bottom left here, you have the watchtower, which informs you about the threats that are newly discovered. So that's fairly helpful, and I should read it more often. As you can see, I still have 70 unread there. And here you have threads by type. You can sort everything by your customers, or again, go back to the MSP level. In this case, I will stay with these servers because that's where I did all my pen tests. And you can see threads by detection engine by last 3 months. So this one is fairly fresh. I have older ones that I use usually. And here's the agent version coverage and so on. Everything you should know possibly. For example, here you have aging threats, so those that are unresolved. And every single graph here is interactive. So if I see unresolved threat, you can see it's already been mitigated. And I can click for more details. So that's one I've run just before we started to have all the details. Here's the original process, what it was initiated by, the detection, and so on. You have the behavioral indicators here. So PowerShell post-exploitation script, suspicious shell command, use of lolbans, indirect command, and process started from shortcut files, which is a nice indicator usually. So here you also have the mitigation actions, which is to kill the process, quarantine the originating files. Then you have remediation, which deletes all files and system changes that were changed by the threat. And last but definitely not least is rollback, which restores files that were changed or deleted by the threat. Rollback only works on Windows because it uses shadow copies. But if it's the moment that you became scared that it's using shadow copies because every malware or especially ransomware will delete those first, then don't worry. I have tried every possible way I could think of to delete the shadow copies, even resize them into oblivion and so on. And the agent protects against all of that. Even if it's in detect only mode, it protects the rollback. So if you are testing and just want to see the analytic coverage, or if you are running an AV and just want to see what it would detect if you switch to EDR, the rollback is always protected. So in this case, I know it was just an penetration test from Atomic Red, so I can mark it as resolved and it was true positive. And you usually don't need to do anything else with the threads. If I deselect the filters, I can show you some older ones. But also, in this case, it was not a file. But if it was, you can view the hash in VirusTotal. So you can see what other vendors think about that file. I can probably show that with the older one. And if you click the thread, you have all the details. So here's the thread indicators again, and mapping to MITRE, to the database with all the details. Here's information about the endpoint and the attack. In Explore, in this case, there probably won't be more, but you have the timeline of processes that were run. This is the point where it was killed, and you can see the details at the timeline. So threat was detected with confidence level malicious. Yeah, you can probably see it here. It was killed in less than 100 milliseconds, quarantined successfully. So it couldn't really change anything. And within a second, it was marked as mitigated already. There was a quarantine action, and here's the analyst verdict in the timeline. If it was in just analytic mode, we would have more events, but I like to keep my servers running in this case. So the process was dead fairly quickly. If I go to some older threads I have run there, let's see, last year, this should be a nice file. So you can check the hash here and see 22 security vendors and 1 sandbox flagged this as malicious. So yeah, lots of different names, but it seems like a Trojan. And yeah, for example, Asset doesn't apparently recognize it as a threat, which is interesting because, as you can see, it's, again, Atomic Red pen test, so definitely should be recognized. And one more thing to tie into would be the XDR. So if you have the details here, you can add nodes and check XDR if you have some other enrichments, and you can find this hash on deep visibility, which again will show you all the details. It stores events only for 2 weeks, if I remember correctly, because there's a lot of data. You've seen the timeline of what is shown, and here you can see everything this particular event was doing. So here's the registry changes individually, opening remote process, duplicating process handle. Again, here's the indicators as they pop up over time. There's the process creation for another one, another indicator. And here you have all the details. For everything, you have the endpoint name, object type. Here's the search that was generated automatically. Here's the details if it was related to thread, event type, time, source process, and so on. So I see I have the first question here.
And second one as well.
Yeah. Is it possible to detect Netcat session? I think so, but I haven't tested it. You can definitely go on our website, start a trial and test it for yourself, so you don't believe me. And yeah, go ahead and try. I think it's still at least in top 3 on detection rates, Sentinel-1. So yeah, just to the follow-up questions, I cannot show you at the moment because I would have to simulate the thread, and I think we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. Okay, I think that maybe we can organize a separate session with you because we use Ondra's time during his participation on some public event on other country, and maybe we can do it another time or separate event.
Yeah, I would just say, Nebojša, please send me the chat transcript so I
Sure.
can simulate this, and we can set up a call after so I can confirm or deny that it can be detected. So just to quickly wrap up, what I probably didn't mention because we are running out of time is the sentinels, which are the endpoints. So you have packages for Windows, Mac, and Debian and Red Hat based Linux distributions. There will be mobile devices coming sometime. I don't have the date yet, but they are likely coming. So you can protect everything you need. But honestly, you shouldn't probably need it on mobile devices if you have some MDM and reasonable policies there. So you see individual versions here. And yeah, as I said, you have the version coverage on the dashboard here. Yeah, we have 3 minutes left. So if there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. Sadly, I won't be here after I finish, but you can send any further questions through Nebojša or the contact that I've shared, and I will share again on your screens.
Great. We had better connection than on previous on the first session, so we are improving, and according to the questions, we will try to provide information related to the question in the chat. So that would be some resume. Thank you, Ondra. Enable is really one of pioneers in MSP business, and it's a lot of things they put first on the market and they develop nicely. So thank you, Ondra, once more.